almost think about it in terms of a pyramid where you have digital ID at the bottom. Then you have that next layer where it's basis of programmable currency, whether it's stable coins or central bank digital currencies. And then that therefore ensures that you've got complete behavioral control.
If this is what upsets me so much, is so many people, I've seen quite rightly so many people saying this is the hill I will die on. I will not give my consent. And then to find out that they've been tricked for, again, these everyday things like we all need a driving license.
If you want to make a stand, it won't be long before you don't have that possibility if they manage to really push this digital ID through, together with essentially access to programmable currency, which deducts tax at source.
I mean, probably the whole COVID fiasco was probably the biggest ever genetic collection exercise globally.
If we can stop them reaching that critical mass or delay that, then, well, that's huge for mankind. That really is.
Right, a big welcome back to the Live, Love, Learn podcast with me, your host, Catherine Edwards. And today we are going to be talking about something that, regardless of where you're listening to across the globe, is going to affect you if it's not already, and that is digital ID and CBDCs. Now, I think most of people that listen to my channel know that confusion is a tool of control, and I think a lot of us think we're going to get a nice little invite or not to join digital ID, but the reality is actually way more sinister, because there's so many ways that people can consent without knowing. We've all seen over the last 5 years that it's very easy for them to contrive an emergency like another pandemic or a financial shock that can be used to exert emergency measures which can become permanent. So today we are going to be talking about digital IDs, CBDCs, what can happen without your clear consent, and most importantly, any tips or ideas that we can do to stay informed, ready, and how we can resist. And because of this, I am so happy to have a new guest on my channel, Miles Harris. Now, Miles has a bachelor and master's degree in economics and has studied financial crises since 1999, from Asia to Russia to the 2008 collapse and beyond. He began investing in property in 1999 and after graduating chose not to pursue a typical city career. Good choice. His YouTube channel has literally, over the last couple of weeks since this has all blown up in the UK, has become my absolute favourite. He explores macroeconomic trends, wealth preservation and real economic history, and the creeping movement towards dystopia and practical strategies for personal and financial sovereignty. And obviously a link to Miles's YouTube channel will be below. Please do go and join that, because there is so much information that every single one of us needs. Miles, thank you so much for joining today. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Pleasure. Great to be here.
Yeah, your information is amazing, which is why I invited you on, because I think you give a degree of credibility and a way of explaining things that even non-economic people like myself can understand. So I'm very appreciative of that. But I would be lying if I said this didn't keep me awake this weekend. It's almost one of those subject matters that the more you find out about it, the more horrific it becomes. I think loads of my audience, Miles, have been very well aware of CBDCs and digital ID as a control grid to make people have no choice, bring us, people use the China analogy very effectively. But what I didn't realise until I started watching people like you was just how many ways there are for people to bring it in through the back door, and how things like the brick card could be a bit of a distraction. So for those people that aren't quite clear, what is digital ID and why is it different from, say, the logins we have already, our passports?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to understand there, really, Catherine, is just that there's many forms of different government ID, and people often comment, "Oh, you signed up when you got a mobile phone." There is an element of truth to that, but of course we have driving licenses, passports, and so on. But they're all in different silos, so they're all in separate databases, essentially. Now, the key difference with the digital ID is that it centralizes that database and it ensures that it is interoperable between all of those different government departments, so that that can function as a massive source of convenience. And that, of course, is the big kind of selling point for the public, that you don't have to worry about all these separate documents. You do just have one login, and that login then provides your access point to government services, in essence. And I think that the real danger here, though, is that that being interoperable will then be rolled out across public-private partnerships. So it means that it's a anchor point, essentially, for all identity, whether you're involved in the public sector or whether you're having some sort of service from the private sector. That digital ID is intended to become that one point of certifying who you are.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge, because I think it really shows for so many of us. I mean, a lot of people, Miles, talk about the state of the world we're living in, and it really shows just how deep the mistrust is on both sides, really. Most people now have zero trust in the governments to be doing the right thing and be doing something that's actually in our best interest. And of course, when I'm talking about the government, I am not talking about every single person involved in that. Of course, there are some good eggs in there. But on the other side of things, we've got the criminal enterprises, and there'll be very few people watching this that haven't been hacked in some way or form up until now. Unfortunately, it's a reality of the world we're living in. What do you think this shows about the trust of those who are supposedly putting it in for our benefit, and what perhaps some of the real agendas might be behind it?
Well, I think when you look back to all of the shenanigans of 2020 and that period, a couple of years thereafter, that period was, I would say, a net loss for domestic governments. But at the same time, it was a net gain for a more global agenda towards a more unified system.
Yeah.
And digital ID is one key element of that, of course. And ultimately, digital ID is the jewel in the crown. It is the gateway to complete control. You can almost think about it in terms of a pyramid, where you have digital ID at the bottom. Then you have that next layer where it's basis of programmable currency, whether it's stable coins or central bank digital currencies. And then that therefore ensures that you've got complete behavioral control. So I think that the main outcome really from what we saw in that period is one of a win for global governance, essentially, in terms of moving to a more uniform system. And you can see that with the rollout that is actually taking place right now with digital identity. Particularly across the Western developed worlds, because that's almost where it's most necessary, because that is where the debt is at most extreme levels.
That's such a good point. And I think for anyone that thinks we're over exaggerating this, you've only got to look at, during the COVID pandemic, look at how you couldn't travel without a vaccine, proof of vaccine. Look at now, imagine if all that's in one day, there's no way to get out of these things. And look at the truckers' protests in Canada, where everyone had their bank account shut down. Look at the fact that we know now that anyone who was giving an alternative narrative to, say, the safety of the vaccines got shut down, sacked, all the information was removed. You couldn't get hold of it. So we're looking at a system where people will only get the information that this global government wants them to get, and it will be very, very hard for them to access anything that's a different opinion, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Because what we're ultimately talking about here is single point of control. Everything is down to that one point of control, that one centralized database. And really, that just provides the perfect infrastructure for mass data sharing, surveillance, and social credit scoring, of course.
Mm.
And as you say, eventually, it would seem more than likely that it moves to one of therefore foregoing bodily autonomy. And when it comes to the programmable currency element, the potential not being able to actually transact,
Yeah.
to buy or sell.
There's
And that's all permission based then.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to this, and we're covering some of the main overviews today of where we're at now. Obviously, I'll be directing people to the playlist on your channel as well, where you go into each of these in a lot more detail. But one of the things I think that has shocked myself and a lot of the colleagues I've been talking about at Miles is that the big Brickyard announcement from Keir Starmer could be quite a red herring, because there's so many ways already that people are actually opting in to the start of this without having any ideas. Can you give us a little few examples of that, like the government one login, and how this is going to track people?
Yeah, so as they're looking to expand this, they're obviously looking to increasingly onboard people here, because they want everyone on board. And what they've already established and had established a couple of years ago was the one login system. And that one login system is that one portal across the government. But they're also rolling this out via a public-private partnership model, because that almost gets around some of the legal elements, as it appears to me, such as the Identity Documents Act of 2010, which ensures that there is no national register of ID. And that does seem to be a major speed bump for them. So that's something that they've got to overcome. And one of the ways in which they can do that is via public-private partnerships. So increasingly, they will use the mechanism of onboarding people via private companies. So it's not just a matter of using one login, for instance. So I've had so many messages of people saying, "Oh, I got a new driving license last year. I got a new passport," and so on. And they've gone through the one login system to actually set that up. And in America, of course, there's an equivalent system where it's the login.gov. And that provides the same portal. So I think the most important thing is for people to be really, really aware of anything which requires them to actually do a government document scan and a selfie or a video, anything like that, which can then provide that biometric entry point for the
Yeah.
digital ID. But yeah, it's a little bit saddening, to be honest, to receive all of those messages of people that are really, really annoyed that they've almost been tricked into signing up on this. That said, you can delete the actual presence on there, which does, after a period of time, seem to delete the biometric data that's taken. But there will always be a record that is actually maintained of that interaction that's taken place.
If this is what upsets me so much, is so many people, I've seen, quite rightly so many people saying this is the hill I will die on. I will not give my consent. And then to find out that they've been tricked for, again, these everyday things, like we all need a driving license. Most of us, I was going to say we all need a passport, but that's up for debate. It's going to be making people ask these really, really important questions, isn't it? And it's so confusing for people, because without really spending the time to dive deep into it, I can really understand how most people don't understand how applying for your driving license or your passport can be such a trap.
Oh, it certainly can. And so what we've really got to do there is make sure that we maintain paper alternatives. Now, those alternatives are already being discouraged. So if you think about completing self-employment tax return,
Yeah.
if you're doing that via paper, well, you've got to complete that by the end of this month. Whereas with the digital online version, of course, you get until the end of January next year. So there's already elements of that functional compulsion. And alongside passport, it's more expensive to apply via post and a little slower as well. But we've got to maintain those alternative options because otherwise we're all going to get onboarded very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about the recent announcement that I only heard about last week about the directors, the company directors, and what they're doing there?
Yeah, so obviously they want company directors as effective economic leaders in this country, and I think it's somewhere around 70% of the workforce who are actually employed by small, medium-sized enterprises in the private sector. So they really are a key hub for growth. And I imagine the logic there is if we get those directors on board,
Yeah.
then they're going to be okay as an employer to therefore onboard their employees and demand that, because of course that was something which Starmer announced that he wants ID to be mandatory by 2029 for anyone who actually wants to engage in paid employment.
It's horrendous because again, most company directors, they're busy. They're very, very busy people, as we all are. But it's so deceptive that they're deliberately not giving people the information to actually understand what they're doing. And I think again, I think we're probably going to see a lot of company directors onboarding to this without any understanding of the implications of it. What can
Yes.
we all do to help spread that? I mean, obviously making videos and this, but any other advice for people that we can all go out and give information to anyone you know that is a company director to try and halt this process?
Yes, well, I think word of mouth is very powerful there, and I think that's something which we really need to expand upon. But I think yeah, if we can also set the example there by just saying, oh well, I've put in my confirmation statement early ahead of the 18th of November, or I've used a notary as a means of actually working around that requirement. Then I think that does help set the example and just alleviate another form of bureaucracy. So yeah, we've got to do all we can there, certainly.
Yeah, what about for those people that are sole traders like myself and they're looking at we're going to have to make quarterly returns, I understand, moving forward, and they're asking for it all to be digital. So what can those people do?
Well, I think another very interesting pathway here is have you heard of Chris Coverdale and some
No.
of his work? Yeah, there's a website called probitycode.com, which is worth having a look at. And essentially, it involves tax protest. So that may be appropriate for some that actually feel really, really, yeah, sore about this point and really want to actually make a stand. And essentially, it uses a trust mechanism where the money that is actually owed to HMRC is deposited into a trust on their behalf, but they have to actually meet certain conditions
Right.
which are laid out in international and domestic law. And then they're given a period of time to actually fulfill those conditions as the primary beneficiary of the trust. But it is a conditional revocable trust. So it's based upon condition and the ability to actually revoke the trust if they do not meet those conditions. So I think that's a very good protest to actually take because ultimately what we're looking at here is a system which, and if you think historically about how digital ID has always been used, it's always been a basis of control, taxation, therefore revenue extraction for the government, and access to money. So those really are the three dynamics there that have always been used. So if you want to make a stand, it won't be long before you don't have that possibility if they manage to really push this digital ID through, together with essentially access to programmable currency, which deducts tax at source.
Yeah, I think this is a time, literally more than ever, where we all need to stand together and help each other and pass on this information, because there is so much power in that, and everyone can, help with one bit of the jigsaw puzzle, which is absolutely crucial, because most people just haven't got the knowledge or the time to do all this on their own. It's very concerning. What about the NHS app? Because this is all part of it as well, our health data. We all know they've been collecting a huge amount of health data. I mean, probably the whole COVID fiasco was probably the biggest ever genetic collection exercise globally. Have you got any information about how the NHS app fits into this?
Well, there's an NHS app, and I know there's another app which is meant to be looking at integrating all of the public service elements as well. And so that there is an actual diagram outlining how the government expects this to work, and essentially it has the single sign-on element with the one login. Then they are in the process of developing a wallet, and that wallet will hold and store and manage your credential, your identity. Then that wallet will then be able to tie into any public services, any private services that you are then utilizing. So you can then hold either the credential from the wallet or the wallet itself inside a bank app, or inside an NHS app, and so on. So that's where we're heading with this. That seems to be the model, and therefore I would expect that the US in time will also look towards developing its own government wallet, because that's one thing they don't have yet.
And I think this is always so key. The one thing I've learned over the last 5 years more than anything is anytime you see these sort of same systems being rolled out globally, then you know that there's a bigger master plan behind it. And let's come on to the CBDCs. Can you explain to people what those are and how that links into this picture as well of controlling everything, that every penny that we spend?
Yeah, so CBDCs are obviously a programmable form of money. Now, obviously, that gives enormous control because it must be linked to identity as a key fundamental principle. There's an interesting foundation to CBDCs, though, as a concept, and that is via the ISO 20022 financial messaging standard. Now, that started being developed as a pipeline way back in, it was the early 2000s, and they've been testing this for over 20 years now, and increasingly it is being utilized to ensure that all financial messaging includes much richer data within it. So it's not simply, oh, this money is being transferred, but it also includes key information about the recipient. It also includes the information about the sender, invoice numbers, what the reason for the actual financial transaction was. And it's really profound. But what's also significant there is not just the data itself, but the fact that it structures it and organizes it into a machine readable process, because data is really becoming the real resource of the modern world now. It's a key strategic resource for governments and for the private sector as well, but it's got to be verified. And so that pipeline of the ISO standard ensures that that is maintained. So it's almost like a foundational principle for central bank digital currencies or for programmable stable coins. And that is where, of course, the behavioral element can be added to the whole process of making any payment, because we already have digital currency.
Yeah.
And it is simply a bank digital currency. The key difference is now the centralization of that process and turning it into programmable.
It's quite hard not to be depressed with all this. I've sort of got that innate grin on my face that, look, there's always a way when there's always an equal and opposite reaction in this world of duality. So don't lose hope whilst we're talking about this. But it's so important that we're all pre-armed with this information, because if you don't know about it, there's nothing worse than finding out that you've actually been enticed to go in via the back door. So on the money side of things, I know this is a big expertise of yours, Miles. Again, any advice to people listening to this? What can they do to spread their risk?
Well, I think the key aspect here is, as we are heading towards what will be an enormous financial crisis, I don't think that's actually going to be imminent personally. I know there's plenty of people that do, and you hear lots and lots of talk about that and see lots of videos come up on YouTube, but I don't think they've got any of the infrastructure in place that they want to have in place yet to actually, say that's enough now. It's trigger time. So essentially what we're talking about is the prospect of revenue extraction, the ability to enforce controls on where money flows, and the behavioral enforcement element. So therefore, if you can actually move some of your money, if you have money to spare, into hard assets, things that you can actually hold yourself with, that enables you to have something which can actually compete against and outside of the digital realm. So that could simply be some agricultural land. That could be having some gold, some silver, something like that. And of course, they're increasingly looking to digitize that, as they are with everything. But they're also in the process of outsourcing their risk to us. So increasingly, people are going to be holding more and more public debt. And that's going to take place through stable coins, that's going to take place through pensions, and the banks don't want to hold this. And the Bank of England, for instance, has been selling a lot of UK gilts. They don't want to hold that government debt, it seems to me. And there's a long historical track record of that over time. And so where do they move to? Where do they see new potential? Well, they generally create new asset classes. And of course, we've seen that since 2008, but they also always go back to gold. Yeah.
Right, food for thought, everyone. And again, combine resources if you can. We've seen a lot since COVID, a lot of community farms spring up where people are combining assets and doing something together. So I think it's time for us all to get very, very creative now and really have a good audit, would you say, Miles, about what is really essential in your life and what is really important to you, and look at ways of how you can keep access to that.
Yeah, and it's so difficult. It's deliberately made difficult. But at the same time, that really is our opportunity to actually live as almost as we were intended to live, rather than just pursuing this perpetual capitalist dream of more and more and more, and this sort of wealth hubris and so on. And certainly, my thinking has evolved enormously over the last sort of 20 years, where, as you mentioned at the beginning, I got involved in property then, it's very interesting that we're now at a point where many people are actually saying, do you know what, there's more to life than this. And that really is our key opportunity, so that we actually get back to being rather than just doing all the time.
It is so true, and I think, anytime a shock like this is forced on people, and we've all been through this continual trauma loop over and over again by design, but actually, when you do then sort of look at how often the happiest people are the ones that live the most simply. Of course, you do need access to food, you do need access to water, community shelter. But actually, some of those things, it can be something we can all embrace again together with like-minded people.
Mm.
I think the biometrics by stealth, I have noticed hugely. I'm absolutely horrified by how many supermarkets now have, you can't go to the checkout and you have to have the screens on. I like wearing a disguise when I go have to force to reuse one of those. But in all seriousness, airports now, e-gates, facial recognition everywhere. It's pretty full on, some of that technology now, isn't it?
Yes, oh, it certainly is. And again, being able to actually step away from all of that and just get into nature is, yeah, it's very, very important. But yes, you're right. And I almost find one of the more shocking elements is not just the cameras you see at eye height, but those when you actually look up at the
Yeah.
ceiling, and the number that are actually pointing down, and yeah, partaking in that facial recognition. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the red flags we've already mentioned for people to watch out from, because this is the thing, it's like it's understanding where you're being tracked. So we've got things like seamless single sign on for your safety, temporary pilot, opt out later. There's a lot of things that we can look out for that can trigger those flags to us to sort of read carefully before you tick or sign on that dotted line. What have I missed there?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think people ask me about alternative government sign-ons, and of course, there's many of those that are still valid as well. So, for instance, when it comes to those that are self-employed, government gateway access is still safe for now. But all of these, they're increasingly looking to merge. I'd go back to those points I made earlier, that you really want to check on the verified ID element. So when it comes to scanning a government document and being asked to actually um, then upload a selfie or a video of your face where you sort of
Mhm.
scroll it across your face or whatever. Those are key elements, of course. I've also been asked about the EU's biometrics that they're now taking. Now, there doesn't appear to be any sort of continuous data stream between the governments. So while they do have some sort of sharing agreement in place, as far as I can find out, they do not have a continuous stream of information enabling the government to then take your information. That said, the EU then do take it for 3 years, but only in certain circumstances is the government currently able to access the EU biometrics that's taken.
I think that is the thing, is that saying there's no honor among thieves. And I think even though a lot of our so-called governments are pushing us very quickly towards the global agenda, there's a huge amount of mistrust between them all as individuals, as the countries, and that could work in our favor to slow things down, to give us more time to come up with creative ways to resist, do you think?
Yes, I think there's there's always the potential for success in the margins. And a number of the historical videos that I've been done have been looking at modern parallels to what we've been going through and will likely go through. And it's very interesting that you can often find those that have actually come out on the other side, by following certain lessons, by going back to basics, by uh, undertaking a sort of financial audit to ensure that they're sort of in a good position with regards to debt, that they've got hard assets, and these sorts of measures can really make a difference. And there is the potential for success in terms of straddling both worlds. And Of course, no one wants to sign on to digital ID, but if the worst comes to the worst, then it's very difficult to actually think that you almost won't be put into a position where it's a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
And that even in such circumstance, you do have that ability, I think, to straddle both systems.
Yeah.
By having some sort of land available to yourself, so that you are not just based solely in this permissioned world. Yeah, it's not much fun, but I do believe that people have been through a lot worse and actually come out the other side in a good position. But yes, it's dark. It's dark, and it's not nice looking at these things. But the longer we can delay it, the better. And they do have a fight on their hands, particularly as the information is getting out there. And I have included like some quite clickbaity things, but I've wanted people just to actually take something away and just be more aware of what is actually taking place here. Because it's not, as you said earlier, just about saying, oh, yes, I'll download the brick card app or anything like that. It's so much more sophisticated. It's about soft coercion. But that soft coercion will, if they reach critical mass, become then more targeted enforcement. And of course, that's something we've seen before.
Yeah.
And then they'll move to sort of more emergency levels. But if we can stop them reaching that critical mass or delay that, then well, that's huge for mankind. That really is.
Yeah. And a lot of the times I would say, I mean, I probably thought of nothing else this weekend. I've been sort of on a bit of a roller coaster. I do have to be honest with it. But actually, I've worked in the health world, the natural health world for more years than I care to remember. And the sad reality is that when people or their animals are hit with a devastating health diagnosis, it's the time often when they can make the most profound and meaningful changes in their life that then a lot of people, if they do survive that, will then go on and actually think, thank goodness I was forced to make those changes. Do you see this as one of those times?
Yes, I think we've got to, because otherwise it does just get too dark, and it does also mean that we actually yes, can get back to our roots, our foundational principles, that we can actually then support businesses that are making the right decisions as well.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate just up the road that we've got a organic grass-fed beef farm, and they have their beef days probably once every other month or so. And customers come in, they sit down for a chat, have a cup of tea, and they always produce lots of cakes or biscuits and so on for all their customers. And then they're serving you fresh produce where the cows have had like wonderful lives, where they're individually named, where they're truly loved, and have had just a wonderful existence where they've been outside all year round, just eating grass all year round. And the people are just so wonderful. And then you look at the quality of the produce against that which you can buy in the supermarket. And it's indistinguishable. It truly is. And of course, it's not treated with all the antibiotics and so on. And you're doing something right there. And of course, this farm itself, they've been debanked previously for not being carbon sustainable. And it's just laughable. It truly is. Yeah, but it feels like actually, there's real progress being made here at a real human level.
I love that so much. I think it's so important you raise that, Miles, because I think, we have been coerced. I'm not going to say forced, because as adults we've made a lot of choices which have been convenient for us, and a lot of us have gone with the flow. But it's one of the beauties of actually, when you start getting back to those, to support your local communities, use cash whenever you can. What about bartering? How do you think bartering fits into this, Miles?
Yeah, obviously it's difficult. It's obviously just about finding like-minded people.
Mm,
But increasingly, I think there are more of those people around.
mm.
And so there is the potential for that. Now, it ultimately depends on the individual circumstances and what each can offer to the other. But this is, of course, where something like a more divisible hard asset can also function, like potentially silver. So this is why they slap VAT on it and so on, because they want to discourage that sort of usage of it. But yes, as you mentioned, the community element is all important, and so finding some sort of community basis is very, very powerful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Miles. I've got about 100 other questions to ask you, but I'm very conscious of your time. So how can people connect with you? Are you on other channels? I will put your links below, but are you on things like Rumble or BitChute or something as well?
I'm not at the moment, and that's probably something I really need to do,
Yeah,
actually. It's always just a matter of time.
it,
Uh, yeah, but I'm on X, so if you search up Miles Harris, that should come up, and likewise on Substack as well. Just
yeah,
trying to diffuse my audience there, really, because
yeah.
yeah, so while it's seemingly quite liberal at the moment on YouTube in terms of the censorship, I think that's almost a data gathering exercise in itself. But
I
there,
do think it is. Having been a victim of that back in 2020, when I had my
that
channel deleted overnight with no warning whatsoever, and despite them saying they're giving them back, I've never got mine back. But I think you realise how fragile these platforms are. So things like Substack are really great. I haven't made the time to get on that properly yet, but please, Miles's links will be below. Now we've covered a lot of little things to look out for. Miles dives really deep in his channel on each of those. So please do just take that little bit of time to be informed, break it up with a walk out in nature, cuddle your dog or cat if you've got one, so you don't get completely overwhelmed with it all, and connect with Miles on Substack as well, because we need this information to help each other out. So thank you so much, Miles. Any parting words from you?
Oh, no, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on. Thank you so much. No, I just say be careful. As I've said now, third time, document scans, selfies, just be really aware of that, because that's the key target point. That's the verified information that they want. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, please do put your comments and questions below and we will look at them. And if there's more information that we need to come back and do more videos, I will speak very nicely to Miles and see if he'll come back and do some more for us. But be prepared as well as you can be. Just keep your eyes open, spread the word. Don't be embarrassed about talking to this. No one wants to know that you knew something that could help them too late. You've got to sort of stand up and say it now. And thanks for your time, Miles, and thanks for everyone watching us. Bye.
Bye bye.
What if you could carry a protective, high energy field everywhere you go? Or turn your home and phone into a high consciousness sanctuary in minutes? Have you ever noticed how some places lift you up and others drain you? A walk in nature, a sacred site, time with animals or high vibe people. You feel clear, calm and alive. And then you step into a noisy, stressed space. Phones, Wi-Fi, blue light, fear in the air and your energy tanks. What if you could take the uplifting field with you? Well, you can. And it's called FLFE, Focused Life Force Energy. An advanced, non-invasive tech, FLFE creates a high consciousness field around your home, workplace, phone, or even a personal object. No extra routines, no extra to-dos. Once it's on, it runs 24/7 unless you turn it off in the background of your life. People report things like deeper, more restful sleep, calmer emotions and less stress, sharper focus and productivity, support for harmonizing EMFs in your environment. It's been an absolute game changer for myself, my family, and my clients. Think of it like carrying the feeling of your favorite nature spot on demand while you commute, parent, work, or rest. And the best part is you can try it absolutely free for 15 days, no card required, and you can experience a shift for yourself. Check out the link below and turn it on for your home and your phone. Feel the difference and decide for yourself. We take our energy everywhere and we absorb the energy everywhere. So make sure yours is coherent, protective, high vibe with FLFE. Try it free for 15 days, no card, and the link's in the description. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.